Hello, hello, hello. This is Lucia Pavone. I want to take a moment to welcome you to Mushrooms in Menopause, the Sensual Sage. It's an honor truly to be able to have this conversation with you all tonight. So I just want to take a moment to ground us in, and I welcome you to, before we ground in, to make sure that you shut off your phones, create a space, a sacred space for yourself to sit and receive this information, and make sure to get out a journal and a writing implement that you're going to be using to take notes, to write down, jot down things that come to your mind as we're going through this evening. And of course, if there's questions, I welcome them in the chat, or just write them down and we can discuss them at the end of the presentation. So we're going to be here for about an hour, maybe an hour and 25 minutes. I made the time frame 2 hours just in case we wanted to get a little bit deeper into conversation together. But just know that you will receive the recording, so you can go over and keep this for as long as you need. It's going to be stored on my in my private section in my YouTube channel, so you'll get this afterwards. All right. Let's go ahead and just take a moment, close your eyes. Find your space, your sits bones. Take a moment to presence your mind, your heart, your body, and your pussy as well. Your genitals are really important. And let's not forget your spirit. Just notice in your body, is there anywhere that needs a little bit of extra love or tenderness right now? Go ahead, rub your hands together. Maybe it's your heart. So if you want, put your hands on your heart. Maybe it's your womb space. Maybe a hand on the heart and the womb space. Maybe it's your eyes, your head. You can go ahead and gently take care of those places with your own hands by warming them up. Maybe it's your throat. Good. Well, I welcome you to take a deep breath and inhalation in. Hold, release. And 2 more times, breathing in. Hold and release. 1 more time, breathing in. Hold and release. And from this place, we welcome in a pure source golden light protection sphere, commanding any entities, any energies that are not of pure source golden light, divine light, to return to whence it came, never to return again, sending those energies off with consciousness. And we give thanks to the native people of this land, wherever you're at. If you don't know the native people whose land you're on, or maybe you are a native person of that land, give thanks. And we give thanks. And we invite in the elements, the directions, and if you so choose, you can invite in the wisdom of your ancestors. Let's just take a moment to honor the lineage of women that came before us and that will come after. Whether you're here in person or one of the many people who are receiving this recording after, whether you're in Australia or the United States or Europe or wherever you're calling in from, we bless you. When you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. And just take a look around your space. This is a brave container that I'm creating, but you create your own safety within your body. So I welcome you to just take a moment to look around, to listen to some sounds. I like to use my little mushroom rattle to ground me back. All right, welcome, welcome, welcome once again to this fun-filled evening of Mushrooms and Menopause, the Sensual Sage. My name is Lucia Pavone. A little bit about myself before we dive deeper in. I have been in the field of women's health and wellness, around sexual health and wellness, for over 25 years. And I'd love to share a little bit about my journey. So first of all, I am 50 and this is going to be a really interesting story. I have been in menopause, meaning I hadn't gotten a period for over a year, actually a year and 4 months. Ironically, up until yesterday. I think my body was trying to tell me something really wonderful and fun. I was traveling back from a trip to California working with clients, and I was in the airport yesterday, and I felt my ovary and thought, God, am I ovulating? This feels really awkward. And I went to the bathroom in the Denver airport and I was bleeding. I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. I haven't had a period in almost a year and a half. And here came this really light moon blood. And I just gave thanks. I kind of had a little tearing up, so much beauty and fun. And I thought, oh my God, this is kind of amazing. You know, how amazing the body is as it's preparing me to have this conversation around our cycles changing. Here was my body coming in to remind me. So I'm actually on my moon, which is kind of amazing. I feel really extra energized. I feel really flushed and just really enjoying this experience around having my moon after not having my moon for, like I said, almost a year and a half, and leading this course on menopause, mushrooms and menopause. So I think that's really fun. And so my journey around working with women and their sexual health really came as a full journey with myself. I started working with herbs in my early 20s when I was dealing with the effects of having had an abortion at 25 with my husband and trying to rebalance my hormones. I had gone on a birth control, Depo-Provera, and I was trying to research how to get my cycles back in sync because I'd always had very, very succinct moon cycles. And so I learned about an herb called Vitex at the time, and it was amazing. It really supported me in my sexual wholeness and wellness because I got my cycles back, I got my libido back, and I also had to like wean this birth control out of my system. And then came my birthing years where I was trying to figure out how to get pregnant. I was like, oh my God, I need to get pregnant. So I started researching herbs to like really nourish my womb. I had studied native herbs of California for a good year and how to use herbs, create herbs and tinctures and salves. And I also was on a spiritual journey of understanding my connection to the divine through studying astrology, Kabbalah, and Tarot for over 5 years with my mentor, Amber Gianti. So I was on this like journey of wholeness. And then came my daughter. And my daughter was born in 2000. And after a 4-day labor, planned home birth, I ended up in the maternity ward at the maternity center and had an unexpected cesarean section. And from that, I had to relearn my body. I lost a lot of nerve connection to my genitals. And I started this path of trying to figure out, well, how did I end up having a C-section when I had all the things for me? And so I learned about the medical system and how it really wasn't meant necessarily to support women in their journey of their sexual wellness. Definitely not around their pleasure, and how the medical system had really um, monetized our cycles. And I started the Santa Cruz, California chapter of the International Cesarean Awareness Network, where I supported hundreds of women in community to have vaginal birth after cesarean or home birth after cesarean section. And that through that organization, I met a woman who supported me on my journey of understanding my own sensual and sexual connection to my orgasmic pleasure. And I became a student of extended orgasm, full body orgasm, and then eventually started to teach other women and men around this topic and other couples. And then finally, it led me into understanding the importance of touch and combining all these different systems. I am now a somatic sex educator, a sexological body worker, and a Tao pelvic practitioner. I also am a source practitioner, amongst other things. There's a lot of lists that I fall under a lot of categories of the things, the hats I wear. And so, like I said, over 25 years of experience. And in that process as well, I had to deal with things like uterine fibroids, miscarriages, reconnecting to myself and my body, my sensuality, and with my husband at the time, and forming that connection after all these experiences. So when I turned 40, I was dealing with very, very tough periods, uterine fibroids, and I decided to have what was called the uterine fibroid embolization, where I strategically cut the blood flow off to my fibroids through these pellet injections through my major arteries. And it was a big choice because the other choices I was being given were to get rid of my womb, and because I wasn't having babies anymore, and I was being told it wasn't important for me, or to just keep bleeding. And I've tried so many ways to manage those cycles. So I had to learn about all these things around my health, around what I was eating. And so that led me to a lot of research. And then when I had this embolization, what happened was, for the first 6 months, I didn't have a period. And then my cycle came back, but it was really light. I thought it was actually going directly into menopause, but I was starting my perimenopausal journey at 40. And I thought, wow, this is really young. I knew that my grandmother had gotten pregnant actually in her 40s. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. Like, my cycles are going to be different than my grandmother's or my mother's. And so I started to try to understand, like, what is it that I need to do? Because nobody really talked about menopause to me. Nobody talked to me about well-being. But my mentors around my sexual wellness, around extended orgasm, they had actually gone a route of researching their menopause during their practice of deliberate embodied orgasm, full body orgasm. So I had a whole nother learning around the pleasure of having going through perimenopause into menopause. So I had this other view of, like, what was possible. So I started to ask questions around to my mother, who, by the way, was from another country, but both my parents are from Sicily. So I'm first generation in this country. And so she had a completely different upbringing around periods, around sexuality. And so asking her these questions took a lot of courage, because she really didn't have the experience that I had around owning my sexuality. So I feel like my journey has been actually very healing for 7 generations back, and hopefully 7 generations forward. So one of the reasons I decided to actually create mushrooms and menopause, the sensual sage was all I'd heard about, like getting my, going through menopause or being in menopause, was that I was gonna never want to have sex again. I was gonna dry out vaginally. I was gonna be crazy. I wasn't gonna want to I was gonna get old and wrinkly, and I was only gonna get big and fat. And I was like, oh my God, oh gosh, this is so crazy. And these are the things people are telling me. And I'm thinking, wow, we really don't appreciate the female form and the process of becoming what people called the crone, or the hag. And I thought, I don't know, those words seem so outdated, because when you look at somebody who's 50 or 60, you see, or at least I see, I am 50, by the way, I see the energy of a 30-year-old. Now, I feel that in my body, and I see the difference that our generations are having. What we're going through is a lot different. So I came up with the term the sensual sage, because I feel like the sensuality is the part that is often disconnected from at a young age. Our sensuality is not our sexuality. It's really our engagement of all of our senses, including our sixth sense. And when we move into this wise part, or the sage part of our existence, our sensuality in essence actually comes back online, if you're actually in tune and willing to nourish that part of yourself. So this is why I decided to put something together, because I thought, oh my God, it's been over a year and a half and I'm in menopause. So this is what I think is so freaking funny and amazing, that I got my period yesterday after all this time of not bleeding. So you better believe I'm going to be taking this menstrual blood and creating a very beautiful mandala from it, so that I can mark and honor this special tradition. So for a long time, for those of you who are still perimenopausal and bleeding, or maybe you're not even perimenopausal and you're listening to the replay, or you will understand that there's so many beautiful things that you can do with your moon blood every month, in tracking your cycles and understanding your moon blood and using it in a ritualistic, beautiful way that it actually adds to your life. And so I just wanted to preface that. So, okay, but let's get started. Like I said in the beginning, this will be about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And then if there's any questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll answer them that way. So the people getting the replay can, fully just be embodied in this conversation. Okay, so let me go ahead. And please forgive me if I'll just preface there right now. This is, very organic. I have a little slideshow and I have a couple things that I wanted to share with you. So if there's technology issues, just know ahead of time that that might happen. And if you can't hear me, please let me know. And if there's something that, I skip over, please let me know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully you can all see. All right, welcome to Mushrooms and Menopause, Essential Sage. Tonight, we're going to talk about relearning your cycle. We're going to talk about touch and tenderness, herbs for sensual sage, and of course, sacred mushrooms. And just to be clear, when I say sacred mushrooms, I am talking about psilocybin mushrooms. They are psychedelics. And so I am not a medical professional or therapist. And this is only for informational purposes only. And so I am giving you a little glimpse into my own personal journey and how I support other women. And this is completely 100% by consent. And what I mean by consent, two people agreeing to having this conversation. So anybody who's registered for this, you have agreed to have this conversation. So thank you. Okay, relearning your cycle. Why is it important to relearn your body cycles? When you had your period, did you bleed with the new or full moon? Can or did you feel yourself ovulate? So I'm going to give you just a few moments to just answer those questions for yourself. All right. And as you're answering the questions, I'm just going to take a moment to take a breath. And I'm going to answer the question, why is it important to relearn your body cycles? Well, sometimes when we are actually, when we've had, when we've gone in our younger years, a lot of us will have irregular cycles, or will have regular cycles, or some people who are on birth control may not even cycle. And so there was a time in our existence where we actually cycled with the moon cycles. And in Egypt, in the temple of Dendera, you can see in all its majesty is astrological charts. And also you can see moon cycle charting all throughout the temple. It's kind of beautiful. The other things that you see there are images of blue lotus, Hathor's, it's Hathor's temple. So you will also see images of Hathor with the cow's head. You'll see reference to mushrooms everywhere as well, so carved into the walls. And so the importance of relearning your cycles. Well, when we stop bleeding, it can be really difficult to understand, like, am I ovulating? Am I not ovulating? Will I, how will I know if can I get pregnant? That's just one aspect. But the other aspect is there's energetic cycles that happen when throughout the whole cycle of your moon cycle. So if you're not bleeding, it can be very difficult to figure that out. Like, how do I figure this out? So the first way, and depending on what you answered, when you had your period, did you bleed with the new or full moon? If you know this, wonderful. If you don't worry. So if you were a new moon bleeder when you were younger, you started your weaning, you started bleeding around the full moon, you ovulated around the full moon. If you started bleeding at the full moon, you were a new moon ovulator. So the traditional thoughts around when women bled were usually that there was a cyclic pattern with where women would bleed together, and they would generally bleed around the new moon, and then they would ovulate around the full moon. And so there's a lot of folkloric tales around this. So when I stopped bleeding, what I decided to do is, I was actually a new moon bleeder anyway. I would start tracking my cycle around the new moon and just noticing the changes of my body. So even though I didn't have blood coming out of my vagina from the shedding of my uterus, I still was able to generally feel different things that would happen in my body at first. So my breasts might get tender and swelled up. I might get more weepy. I might be craving ooey gooey chocolatey foods or salty foods. My lips might feel more engorged. I might feel like more rosy in my cheeks. My genitals might change color, which means and indicates more blood flow there. Underneath my eyes would get a little bit darker because there's more blood flow there. I might become a little bit more aroused in my body, maybe wanting to have more sexual and sensual experiences with myself or a partner. So I started to track these cycles, and it was very beneficial to like write, journal, and start to actually notice, well, hey, I'm getting more mucus or less mucus in coming out from my vagina. So things that in our normal moon cycles that would happen, our body actually remembers these cycles. They are actually imprinted in our muscle memory. Hence why yesterday, when I was actually on the phone and I was sharing with my co-founder of Women in Mushrooms Detroit, Keisha, I was sharing with her, I said, gosh, I really feel like I'm ovulating, like my womb is going wild. And I literally an hour later went to the bathroom and had my period. And I messaged her and said, oh my God, can you believe this? I got my period. She's like, you knew, you just totally knew. And I was like, I know, I did know. My body knew. And that signaled to my mind like something was up. All right. The question, can or did you feel yourself ovulate when you had your period, or if you have your period? Yes. There's a possibility that there's like a sharp jolt, or you just feel maybe sometimes a little bit like queasy. There could be a spike in temperature, body temperature, which is a telltale sign of ovulation. You become a little bit warmer when you're ovulating. And so these things that we use when we are in our cycles can be used to track your perimenopausal or your menopause cycles. And so I wanted to share this little image of the phenology wheel. So what is a phenology wheel? So a phenology wheel is this. So this is broken up into 30 days. And what I used to do when I had my moon cycles regularly is I would start with the first day of the month and I would track them on a 30-day cycle, because I had a 28-day cycle. But, and I wish I had an example for you, but all those journals are in storage. And I would actually keep this folded up into threes at the front of a journal. And I had this thin paper journal that I would every month just get a new journal, because I wanted to not just track my cycles, but I wanted to really make the most out of the energy that was being produced at each phase of my cycle, and put that into my business, into my daily living, into my sex life. And I did not use birth control in my marriage. And so for me, it was imperative that I knew my cycles. I knew what every part of my body looked like. And because of this practice, I learned so much about my body, everything from the change in color of my nipples, the weight of my breasts, the shape of my vulva changing and looking different, the smells, even the taste of my interior of my vagina, because believe it or not, you can use all your senses to understand what your body is doing. So what I would do is I would actually look at the moon cycles for the month, and I would color this in. This would become a really beautiful, almost look like a mandala of all the cycles of the moon. So I would draw the moon, like say if it was a full moon, it was bright yellow. And if it was a new moon, it was dark. It was a dark, no yellow in there. And if it was like a little crescent moon or half moon, it would be like a half moon, crescent moon, first quarter, crescent moon, second, last quarter. And I would actually jot this out. And in here, I'd put what the quarters were. And excuse me, I would take a sip of water and go. This is my cute little moon rod. I would start to learn my cycle. And so I started using this, in perimenopause, just to kind of understand how my body was working. And the importance of doing this for our learning about our cycles was really understanding your deep connection to your body and how you were changing, to notice, excuse me, what is different? Is my cycle changing? Is it longer? What can I expect? Am I having a different kind of reaction this month? Having this information is so essential to actually having harmony with your body, because that perimenopause and menopause time of life is very difficult to navigate for so many people. So now, not having full periods at all over the past year and a half, I've really utilized this cycle, and maybe I don't draw it out every time or every month. But what I do is I jot down things like, oh, I can feel my ovaries pulsating. My body feels warmer today. And I look back to all my cycles that I had, and I think, oh, this is probably when I would have been bleeding. Now, along with it, remember how I said when you track these cycles, you also have different phases of the moon. Well, here are the different types of moon phases, and what happens and what kind of energy that we can actually take, from this. So, wise folks know mind Mother Moon for maximum mojo, which I thought was a great, beautiful thought process. Like, how do we harness the energy in our bodies? And here's the thing, this is the beautiful part, is when you are in your perimenopausal stage, what is happening is that I liken it to becoming, having the hormonal energy of a teenager, except this time you actually get to do stuff with it. Like, you know, this what people call hot flashes, or I call surges of energy, because what's happening is that you have this influx of hormonal, like hormonal juice pumping into your body, and your body can just become really flushed all at one point. But this can happen throughout the day. So you have this cycle within a cycle, okay? So here at the new moon, when you're bleeding, is a rebirth. So you're rebirthing. The viable seeds sprout in the first light of the moon, right? So for me, this is where, if I am bleeding, this is where I'm rebirthing something. Something is coming out or clearing out, and we're preparing for more active times. The first quarter is about movement. So this is a good time to set your plans. So, you know, if you're charting your cycle, set your plans for the month. What are you wanting to accomplish in relationship, in finances, finances and business, in parenting, or if you're not a parent, and what are you birthing? Your creative nature, and also like relationships, right? So all kinds of relationships. And the full moon comes along, and that would be normally when a lot of people are ovulating. So what are you, full, and can you take a pause? Usually when you ovulate, you have more energy, but you get a little bit more tired. So can you take a pregnant pause before the curtains open? So before, the next part comes, here you are, building that lining, building that ripeness, releasing. In third quarter, clean up after the party and tie up loose ends, reflect on your lessons. So as you're releasing, getting ready for coming back into this rebirth and stillness phase, really start to take the time right before and during your periods when you have the most energy. So in your menopause stage, you can look at this as like a big power surge in your life, and you can start to kind of slow down. This is your time. Becoming the sensual sage actually is really about coming into the slowing and the sensual and the relearning how to slow every part of who you are, including giving yourself permission to take naps, giving yourself permission to say no more often, and also making the spaciousness for what you need in your daily cycles. So it's super important. All right. So I'm curious, are there any questions so far? You can go ahead and type them in the chat. And this is where I just like to take a moment to do a sacred pause. Just check in with your body, whether you're live or you're listening to the recording. Good. Just take a moment to just thank your body. If you want, you can give yourself a hug. Yeah, like it can be very, confronting to actually have to go through some of these pieces with yourself. And okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share the screen one more time. We're going to go back to the slideshow. Okay, so moving on, touch and tenderness. So what about touch and tenderness during our journey around becoming the sensual sage? So many of us not all of us, may have had a journey around touch in our body as being something that was um, not appropriate. And oftentimes, when I work with women over the past umpteen years, the idea of self pleasure or touching the body can be really, taboo, can be very, very guilt ridden, very shameful. And also having somebody else touch you, especially in places that are private, or around, uh, often, we we look at the genitals as a space that's only for sex, but never necessarily for actual pleasure and healing. But it is its own healing element. And so I have my little model here. So here is a model of the vulva, if you can see in the little picture on the side of this. So this is like a sculpey model of a vulva, the outer labia, the inner labia, the clitoral hood, the clitoris, the urethra, and the urethral sponge inside. This is the opening to the vagina called the introitus. Here's the perineum, and then the anus would be down here. And why am I showing you this model? Because we are talking about, sexual health and wellness. And so it's important that people understand what they're working with and the different parts of their bodies that need and require touch. This is a model of the clitoris, and this is an actual representation of the full clitoris. The clitoral glands that we normally see is right up here. This is the bulb of the clitoris, the cura, which are the legs of the clitoris. And this model is about what your clitoris looks like inside of your body. And it's a non-engorged model, meaning this is erectile tissue, and it actually engorges in about the same amount as a penis has. So believe it or not, most of your erectile tissue you cannot see. All you see usually is the clitoris. And so when you are aroused, not just from having sex or any type of foreplay, but when you're just aroused in general, this tissue can arouse inside of the body, and it's placed. The placement. These bulbs are placed behind the outer labia, and the actual legs of the clitoris wrap around the vaginal canal. So those nerve endings are being touched from the inside and the outside. Now, most of us have, let me say this. Were you somebody who had a good relationship to self-pleasure? A lot of people may not have around touching their own genitals, but there's other types of touch also that are really important, and tenderness when you're on this journey of being the sensual sage. And massage for relaxation and improved flow along the meridians is super important. So, most of us won't treat ourselves to a massage or get a massage. And many people don't even know that there are certain practices. One of the practices that I offer, or modalities I offer, is Tao pelvic healing, which is a Taoist practice that supports the reawakening of the nerve endings and also the capillaries inside the vagina, as well as on the outside of the vulva. And so there's different modalities that are important, but self-touch is probably the best modality for anybody when they're going through the journey of menopause. Because when you are dealing, for example, with hot flashes, one of the things that happens is that you may have an increased blood flow to your genitals. That's what hot flashes are. You have this increased energy, which we call tumescence, the engorgement of the vascular tissue. is what tumescence is. And so we get really hot, and you're like, oh, you might start sweating because your body's trying to cool itself down. But one of the things that you can actually do is you can take that energy and you can use it for your pleasure. You can use it for self-pleasure. And so a lot of times at night, people may toss and turn, but one of the greatest ways to relax is actually to self-pleasure. And so if you create a sensual and erotic practice for yourself on a daily basis, you will benefit from supporting your body to naturally regulate your hormones. Okay. And so what I'm talking about is definitely self-pleasuring, touching your clitoris, even holding a hand over your genitals while you're having a hot flash, and using your breath. Breath work is the other piece here, using your breath and breath work. I teach ovarian breathing and various tantric breath and Taoist breath practices when I work with women. So touch and breath together can support the improved flow along the meridians. And when we say meridians, we're talking about going down from the chakra system. So the root, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and then the crown. So we want to keep that blood flow moving, that energetic flow moving. But when we have constriction and tightness in our menopausal years, or lack of blood flow coming in because we're not getting our period, we actually have to create and move that energy. So touch is an amazing, amazing piece here. Breast massage for hormonal balance. Super important. Our breasts and our nipples help control our hormonal balance. Lymphatic drainage to reduce side effects of hormonal loss. So I have this little picture here because all of our breasts are so beautiful, and they come in different shapes and different sizes. And know that, if you've gone through any type of removal of the breast, that we want to honor that too, and that we can still massage breast tissue and lymphatic tissues if we have that. How would you do a breast massage? So drop massage oil and then massage breast in a circular motion. I always massage out, so outwards from the heart, and in circular motions like this. And that way you're not massaging this lymphatic drainage in here, you're actually moving it down. So here's your lymph nodes. You also have lymph nodes up here. And so you can actually start with neck massage. You can start up here, and you can just 2 fingers. And next time you're having a hot flash, you can do, or even if you're done with your perimenopausal symptoms, you're in menopause, taking a break to move out the stagnant energy and give yourself breast massage. I make a breast massage. You can buy breast massage oil online. I also make a breast massage oil that has Kashan rose and pomegranate seed oil in it, and is amazing. And what that does, you don't want to do anything with sage, because that, especially if you're nursing. So I know it's like mothering years of menopause, way different, but I don't really put any kind of sage on my breast. So using your palm of your hand, warm them up. You also want to massage the breast with power of 4 fingers. So 4 fingers can be really powerful up here on the chest, and also below and out, really moving that breast tissue. Avoid contact with the nipple. But what you can do is take your fingers like this, put it around the nipple, and then push out and move around. So that is how we generally do a breast massage. And when I'm with a client doing any type of like womb healing services, breast massage is always an option that is offered to my clients. And this is one of the most relaxing and hormonally balancing massages that you can do. Okay, so I'm going to invite in another breath. And just take a gauge of how you're doing. This is like information that just allows you to get some of the basics. Like I said, this is for educational purposes only, but just know that, if you are wanting to continue on and understand a little bit more in depth, I may be offering a 5 or 6 week, little mini course just for people who are going through menopause. Okay. The herbs for sensual sage. Ooh, this is like a big one. We're going to go through. I have a list. You will get a link to a PDF with all these, so you don't necessarily have to write this all down. But if something in particular is like, oh, I really got to write this down. Sometimes I give little tidbits that aren't on the actual PDF. You're going to want to get your journal and stuff ready. So I'm going to cover different herbs and mushrooms. But I'm not going to talk about psychedelic mushrooms necessarily in this part. For hormone balancing, estrogen boosting, progesterone boosting, aphrodisiacs, and vaginal dryness. So I'm going to stop share real quick. And I'm going to go over to this. Okay. So this is, first of all, I apologize for spelling hormonal wrong. I just noticed that. So one of those, like, do I take the time to do this and go start late, or do I continue and to just relate to everybody? So I decided to spend my time just not worrying about little spelling mistakes. And like I said, you will receive this. I'll put it into a Google Docs, and I'll send this with the link to the replay. So why herbs over going to, and first of all, it's not necessarily an either or. So check in with your body. You're going to be able to gauge what your body wants. But most of us have been taught, like I said, that we need to take hormonal replacement, that we need to get our uteruses taken out if they're not acting the right way, that we need to apply different, fillers and things on our face because we're losing, collagen and elastin. And so I want to offer you different tools by sharing these herbs and other possibilities with you so that you can have options, not necessarily to say you shouldn't do anything else, but just to say that, hey, that becoming a sensual sage is a time where you can actually really own the potency of being in this time of life, where you can actually give the most fucks and really give the most fucks about yourself. Because historically, women have put all their attention on everybody else, in the traditional roles and of what women are supposed to do. And so this is actually really for women of all sexual orientations. And so whatever path that you followed up until now, that this can be a potential support for you. So for hormonal balance, so the thing I found most supportive was maca. Maca is a master adaptogen, which protects the nervous system while it helps the body to adjust to the stress of modern living. So as an aphrodisiac, its strength is in brightening the hormones, bringing the hormones back into balance and heightening the libido. So in this case, how it works is it doesn't work as like adding hormones into you. It actually works on the pituitary gland to support the regulation of your hormones. There is an over-the-counter product that I loved. It was called Maca Ease, Maca Ease. I'm gonna have to look it up. I've used Maca Pause for menopause, Maca Ease for perimenopause, and both were really supportive of rebalancing my energy levels. Sometimes, I would get a little bit tired in the afternoon, and I would take Maca Ease, and it was so supportive of me, of my body. Maca contains I want to say this right, glucosinolates. So plant alkaloids that can also positively affect fertility for both men and women. So you can use it anytime during your journey of being a woman because of its hormonal properties of regulating your hormones. It blends well with other aphrodisiacs and supports ongoing sexual health. In women, it regulates normalness, the menstrual cycle. It can be used as a natural alternative to HRT, hormone replacement therapy. When we say HRT, that's what we mean. Cordyceps, this is actually a mushroom type of fungi. It especially beneficial to boost sexual desire in women who may be in menopause or postmenopausal. And this is partly because it enhances the biosynthesis of the steroid hormones, cortisol, estrogen, and testosterone. So as we age, the production of these hormones decreases, which can naturally lead to a decreased libido. Now, so this is also what I want to add to in conjunction with this. It really is a use it or lose it. So when we were talking about touch, the clitoris is actually a muscle. And so just like any other muscle, if you don't use it, it actually atrophies and it starts to get like little splintery, like almost like peels back cracks, right? You know, have you ever seen a hair follicle when it's like a split end? It kind of looks like a split end. So you really want to nourish and utilize your touch in conjunction with all this. So estrogen boosting, okay? Black cohosh is, so there's Bacopa monnieri, which I put a link to because I personally have never used it. And so I gave it there as a reference. So I'm not going to necessarily talk on that. So it's something that I linked for your own personal. This is a whole document of researched herbs that either I've used or I've collected for a long time. I have used black cohosh. So it helps activate serotonin receptors in your brain, meaning it boosts your mood. It reduces hot flashes and night sweats. It supports pain relief. You know, it won't get you high and it's not habit forming. Menstrual pain relief. So also, you know, you can use this in perimenopause. So, you know, if your periods get tough and rough, it really supports those what we say PMS or those heavy periods. I don't believe in premenstrual syndrome. I actually feel like that's a medical condition. You know, we've medicalized our surges, and there are definitely documented cases that need to be supported. But I also encourage things like clearing out your connection with your ancestors. So I work on metaphysical and ancestral lineage healing as well. And this is something that I promote with my clients. So I talk a little bit more about black cohosh. The other herb that is supportive for estrogen boosting is motherwort. And so I will link that a little bit more for this. Progesterone boosting. Okay, so progesterone is super important. Progesterone, supports us into actually having healthy tissues and regulating our cycles. So evening primrose oil, you can actually rub it. It supports our libido. So you can rub evening primrose oil actually on your womb space. Now, Vitex is usually an herb, like I said, that I used when I was regulating my periods when I was younger. It's also known as chasteberry, is its name. You can use it to regulate some of your cycles if you're having really erratic cycles and you're not quite ready to fully go into menopause journey. You can use Vitex or chasteberry. If you have too much cortisol, okay, too much cortisol is what people say, I'm getting the cortisol belly. It's stressful. It's why people feel stress and anxiety. You can drink holy basil tea. Ashwagandha is one of the wonderful herbs that also support your cortisol levels from getting too high. And so you can easily find these herbs at the local, I always say, go to your local apothecary first and ask if there is, any type of holy basil or ashwagandha tea that they can give you. You could just have a cup of that a day. I like to actually make a big, gallon jar and like just sip it a couple times during the day. All right. One thing that women who are perimenopausal or in menopause say to me is like they say that their libido has gone down or they don't get turned on anymore. And oftentimes one of the reasons, the real root cause is not necessarily that they don't want to have sex, is that they don't want to have sex that they've been having, because it's so, usually, and I'm talking from more of a heteronormative perspective, but really at any sexual orientation, that whatever, a lot of our sex is still based in this penis and vagina model of fucking. And so the sex hasn't necessarily been the best. And sometimes we experience like genital dryness, or there's pieces around our sensitivity. We just say we don't feel like it, or we're having hot flashes and or we're bleeding too heavy during perimenopause. Now, the thing is, with hormonal, unregulated hormonal changes, and also this like kind of give no more fucks attitude that kind of naturally somehow comes up, we have to start giving a fuck about our sexual wellness, including our desire, even if it's just starting, not even just, more so starting for ourselves and then adding into other people. So Damiana is hands down my favorite aphrodisiac. I have a formula called Luscious Lovers Potion, and the main ingredients are Damiana, maca, Madagascar vanilla, rose hips, cacao, and a couple other things in there, but it's usually with honey and in a brandy base. Why Damiana? Damiana has long been thought of as an exclusively male aphrodisiac, but until recently, we've integrated it through Cynthia Watson. She published Love Potions, A Guide to Aphrodisiacs and Sexual Pleasure. And I've been using it since I was in my 20s, and it is amazing. It really feels like it stimulates and awakens the woman's genitals, because remember, we have erectile tissue just like penises. And actually, we all start off in the womb technically as female. So we all have the same erectile tissue. And because I look at this as a medical piece, we start off with vulvas, even people who have penises, and then they grow into penises. And so the erectile tissue is the same. And Damiana does work on the body to stimulate this euphoric state. Some people say it kind of feels like their whole body comes back online, all their senses come back online. Once again, another aphrodisiac, ginkgo biloba. Experts well, what it does is it exerts an aphrodisiac effect on women due to its ability to improve blood flow to all parts of the body. So it's a vascular dilator, and so this allows the body to get more blood flow. And so the genitals, as we have less, since we're not bleeding as much or bleeding a lot, when we have a lot of blood flow there, our genitals get turned on. And so you can see, like, when you're in perimenopause, you're having hot flashes, you're having a lot more blood flow, maybe even heavier periods. This is a really good time to really get the connection to this new way of cycling, and really start to understand, like, the blood flow is actually part of your turn on. It's not a symptom of perimenopause. It's actually a symptom of arousal. And so giving a new viewpoint around these hot flashes is essential. Like, where can you have these sensual surges work to your benefit to induce a higher state of arousal? And that doesn't mean you have to use it for penetrative sex, but you can use it for things like creating projects, doing wonderful things in community, writing your book, And also those fun things like fucking your brains out and making love and all those great things. So this is an inclusive journey, not an exclusive journey of like one or the other. All right. Once again, horny goat weed. Now, horny goat weed also used to be exclusively for men, but this particular herb really came up for me when first of all, I'm a big proponent of having lubrication around whether you are 20 or 100, because the vagina it's not always going to have lubrication, and that's because there's mixing of seminal fluid. If you are somebody who squirts, it like can wash away some of the creamier vaginal fluids. So I love this one product called Hathor Sutil, and it happens to have horny goat weed in it. It's excellent for stimulating female libido and decreasing sexual dysfunction. I don't think that dysfunction is something we have. I feel like all parts of your body actually know what they're doing. So this gives us a little bit more overview on horny goat weed. Shatavari is known as the queen of herbs for female health and libido. It works as an aphrodisiac for women by bringing all of the symptoms of women's sexual health through all the changes of a woman's life into balance. So something to look up and research. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick breath, a sip of water. So I invite you to do the same. All right. So slippery elm bark, vaginal dryness. So slippery elm bark. So this is an herb. It is a bark of the that you actually kind of grind up, and you put the slippery elm bark in your water bottle or in a jar with water. You can leave it overnight, and then you can strain it if you don't like to have stuff in your mouth. But what I really would do is take a water bottle, and I would put slippery elm bark in it, and I would just leave it for about an hour, and then it would actually become mucilaginous. So it would have this kind of like slippery quality to it. And so when I drank my water, that would actually nourish my body. And the species name is fulva, meaning tawny or pale yellow. And it actually would make the water kind of yellowy sweet. And it becomes soothing mucilage, and it moistens and soothes, while the herb's tannins are astringents, making slippery elm ideal to soothe inflammation, reduce swelling, moisten the vagina, and heal damaged tissue. So mucilage is slippery elm bark, is why it's used for vaginal dryness. Vaginal dryness in menopause is due to the thinning of the mucous membranes, along with the loss of elasticity in the walls of the vagina. It cannot be broken down by the human digestive tract. So when it coats something, it stays coated for a while. And it also contains trace amino acids, manganese and zinc, which are important for reproductive health systems. So it's great for your skin as well, because you're, all parts of your body. So much about this in here. Marshmallow root. Oh my goodness. I love marshmallow root. It tastes great too. For centuries, marshmallow root has healed human beings from various ailments, digestion, throat, eczema, breastfeeding, powerful vaginal dryness treatment, and more. It's also called althea, which derives from the Greek word meaning to heal. And so marshmallow root is one of the most valuable herbs out there, and it's a demulcent, emollient, and diuretic. So it really relieves inflammation. So oftentimes the vagina and the vulva will become inflamed because of the potential shifting of your hormones, thinning your vaginal walls. And so at 50, I've been able to actually maintain very healthy vaginal walls because of using or losing it. Having marshmallow root and also slippery elm together is pretty potent. And also steaming. So this is, if you've never heard of yoni steaming, this is an ancient practice in multiple cultures where you have set up a bowl of herbs in hot water, and the steam, which picks up the, usually the oils or the properties of the herbs, actually comes up in vapor form and actually hits the vulva and into the vagina, and really kind of steams the properties into your genitals. So I always keep marshmallow root in my cabinet. This is one of my favorite herbs together. And this is a source of different places that I found all these places and compiled. I will be adding to this even more. Some of the things that aren't on here are reishi mushrooms. So reishi, I take it in tincture form. Oh, let's see. Reishi in tincture form. I love black sage botanicals. So a little shout out to Ash Ritter. She is in Southern California. She's one of the most amazing herbalists I know. This reishi mushroom blend, it really is supportive of healthy sleep. So I like to take it in the evening. Blue lotus elixir. Now, I mentioned earlier that on the temple walls of, and I'm going to stop share right now. The temple walls of Egypt, we had things like blue lotus and psychedelic mushrooms. So I'm kind of prepping us for the psychedelic piece here. Blue lotus elixir is one of my favorite. It really supports the calming, and it supports like euphoric feeling. So taking, once again, this is from Ash Ritter. I love, love, love her botanicals. Blue lotus elixir. Let's see if I can. I don't know if you can see this color, but it's pretty dark, and it's actually like a blue color, like a grayish blue. And it's you just take a small amount, and it really supports your mental awareness and alertness. And finally, also from Black Sage Botanicals, like you can make this yourself. You can find other, potential people who have these products. I just happen to love Black Sage Botanicals. She has a product that nobody has. And this, I swear by this, okay? It's called Black Sage Botanicals Sweet Spot. Now, let's see if I can have this sweet spot. All right, this is actually an oil, has certain herbs in it. You actually rub it on your yoni. I'm just going to put it on my leg because you can put it on anywhere that is erogenous zones. You can use it on your nipples, on your erectile tissue. It's very low odor. It's edible. But when I tell you, I put this on my yoni and I was like, what is going on? It was just like a flood of engorgement in my tissues. I was like, oh my God, it really works to moisten your vagina. You can also use it as a lube. And so I love it. I'm going to absolutely promote her, and maybe I'll become an actual affiliate of this product because it is so freaking good. And this is her formulation. So those are the specific pieces around black sage herbs and that I love. Okay, let's just go back. We got one more. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen one more time and go back to this little slideshow. All right, mushrooms and menopause, the sensual sage. Sacred mushrooms. What are these little sacred mushrooms? Here's my little representation of psychedelic mushroom. This is probably more looking like a morel with other morel spots. So my journey with psychedelic mushrooms began when I was 23 years old, so over 27 years ago. I first was introduced to them by a boyfriend at the time, and my first introduction really wasn't with eating them, it was picking them. We were in a spot in Texas and at the Renaissance Fair, and he was working there, and he said, hey, there's this cow patty and people go and pick mushrooms there. I'm like, mushrooms? It's like, yeah, psychedelic mushrooms. They make you high. They make you all like, woohoo. And I was like, oh, and it's kind of like a scaredy cat. At the time, I just was like, oh, I'm not, I had done LSD once at that point, and I was like, I don't know about mushrooms. I don't know anything about them except they grew from cow shit. And I thought, wow, I don't want to eat something that comes from shit. But now, as a mycologist, somebody who grows my own mushrooms, and somebody who formulates microdoses, and I'm also part of my journey is high dosing. So I'm working my way up to 20, 30, 40 grams of mushrooms, which I don't recommend to anybody until they first start to understand and really do their due diligence in really learning about mushrooms. So I do support people with monthly protocol, with psychedelics, with integration, with all this, as well as, because I'm a somatic sex educator and a sexological body worker, I can support you also in integrating the two pieces around your sexual health and wellness and psychedelics, which is actually kind of a very rare combination, but something that's so special. So psilocybin mushrooms, sacred mushrooms, I actually call them mushroom technology or technology, because mushrooms not only do, psilocybin mushrooms, they not only support the body with anxiety, like lessening your anxiety, PTSD, getting your body back online in your nervous system, because psilocybin and orgasmic energy kind of act in the similar way. They act, I'm going to stop here real quick. They act as somewhat neurotransmitters for oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins. What does that mean? Those are all the right ingredients for self-love and for loving other people. We talk about oxytocin being the love hormone. Dopamine kind of gets you into this high space. And most of us, when we are going through perimenopause or menopause, actually have a hard time around self-love. And this is why, we somehow feel like, something's wrong with us. But, excuse me, because our mind is playing tricks on us. So one of the beautiful things that psilocybin mushrooms does is it really supports all of these pieces that I shared earlier. So why this is called mushrooms and menopause is that psilocybin mushrooms is actually, I think, the secret ingredient to fostering a greater deal of touch, for supporting the other herbs, because when we think about the forest, we think about the mycelium that covers the forest floor. Mushrooms grow from mycelium. Mycelium, if you don't know what the mycelium is, it's like a neural network for mushrooms that helps trees talk to each other, gives information. The plants inform the mushrooms inform the plants. So mushrooms and herbs actually work oftentimes in a symbiotic way, even though mushrooms are fungi, completely different species than the plants. And so when you have these two pieces working together, this is why each person is individual and each person is going to respond differently. But the things to know about psilocybin mushrooms and menopause are that psilocybin mushrooms, most effective I found is in a microdosing protocol. And the microdosing protocol that I used was, and this is not the Fadiman method, because Fadiman has a special protocol of 3 days on, 1 day off. And so that is also tested on men, and women's biology is a lot different. We have different kind of chemical makeup. So my protocol was 5 days on, 2 days off. What this means is that I would take microdosing capsules, or actually I would actually take the fruit, the dried fruit. We call mushrooms the fruiting body because of the fruit of the fungi. And I would weigh it out, and I would take anywhere from 0.2 to even 0.05. So it doesn't even, or it doesn't even have to be a micro, a full microgram. Most people, when they talk about what's the dosage, so most people, if they're going on a trip, like you hear about people tripping, they take usually start around 3 grams or 3 to 4 grams. Nowadays, people are starting at 5 grams. They're learning that you can actually go a little bit higher than 3 to 5 grams. But we're talking about micrograms. We're talking about breaking up a gram into, 1 microgram. So there's 10 micrograms, right, in a gram. And so our milligrams, I don't say micrograms, milligrams. So 0.1 would be like 1 milligram, 0.2 would be like 2.2 milligrams, very, very small amounts. And what this does, even on a very small level, is it supports the rebalancing of your neural pathways. It allows your body to relax. And oftentimes during menopause, women will experience like very sharp anxiety feelings from the hormonal surges. They have a hard time sleeping at night. So mushrooms for me supported me in really balancing my emotional well-being. It supported also me relaxing enough that I could actually really work on my breath work and my erotic. I have an erotic practice where every day I get in touch with my body through touch, because touch also supported the body to regulate and relax. And relaxation is so important during this journey of, the sensual stage. And, it really takes away this piece around, well, I'm in menopause, so I don't have to have sex anymore. I don't have to deal with any of that. But, that's just not true. Like, some people choose that path, but just know that your body can absolutely still really, really function up until all ages. And so you're nurturing this part of your body. You can continue to actually stay aroused. And mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, really support arousal. And this is one of the things that is so wonderful. I feel like around 2 grams, 1.5 to 2 grams. So if you're not microdosing, you're wanting to actually experience a journey, that 2 grams is a great start for actually coming into a more embodied sexual and sensual experience with your full portal system. When I say portal system, your chakras, and opening up to that sensual wisdom that is in store in your womb space, in your body and erectile tissue. So here's the thing, I'm not going to go through contraindications right now, but there are many contraindications with psychedelic mushrooms and different mind meds. So if you're somebody who's gone through depression or even narcolepsy, or you're using some kind of pharmaceutical drug for your mind and mental health, it's going to be very important that you understand what you're using. And there are contraindications. Sometimes it requires weaning. There's lots and lots of studies that support the use of psychedelic mushrooms as a different path to actually supporting your mental health and wellness in PTSD, depression, anxiety. And so understanding the journey of this beautiful, I call it technology, is imperative. And if you're first starting out and you've never actually used psychedelic mushrooms, I highly recommend that you do your own research first, and that, there are psychedelic therapists out there. And one thing about psychedelic therapists is that their model is in the medical system, it's in the therapeutic system. And so that might benefit people if you're trying to work through some things. Um, and they may not actually have the full capacity of how to support you in your spiritual journey. So I usually work on a different level. Rather than looking at this as therapy, I look at this as technology. So informing you, supporting you to do the deeper dive around healing. And usually what I like to say is that with psychedelic mushrooms, or mushrooms in general, because they grow out of the mycelium, which is that neural network I was talking about, that how they come to us is really important. Because I have my growing teacher, Darren LeBaron, says, we're all just mushrooms having a human experience. And in some ways, I thought about that. I'm like, genetically, we are actually very, our DNA is very similar to that of a mushroom, which is really amazing. So we have a lot of ways that, like, in our body, we actually have nerves and that talk to the rest parts of our body, kind of like the mycelium does around the world. And when you think about it, and this is just something that, I've come up through my own studies over all these years, is that because, we decompose and we actually become the shit, the fertilizer for the mushrooms. Our genetic code is also going into the mycelium and into the mushrooms. So as our ancestors, go into the ground, we become the earth again. And that information actually comes through the mushrooms. So in effect, when we have mushrooms, we are doing some deep connecting with ancestors, and they actually act as a portal to the divine and our ancestors. Even on that micro dose level, we can actually feel the beauty and the expansion around connection there. And this is what does this have to do with the menopause or the sensual stage? Well, during this time, a lot of times women will start to have a lot more free time for themselves. Lots more teeming thoughts will come through in their journey to becoming the sensual sage. And there's a lot of healing that has to be done. And when I say healing, my definition of healing is actually remembering your wisdom. And that includes the wisdom of your ancestors. And so understanding how to tap into that knowledge based on your lineage is really important. And so when we do a little bit of a deeper dive, I talk about ancestor journeys because that has been a huge part of my own journey. Being the first generation born in this country from immigrant parents, I've learned a lot about my ancestral lineage and also my genetic lineage, right? So my ancestors are from, and my parents are from Sicily. What is Sicily? I had to look, and I had to go deep into the history of this particular island. Before it became part of Italy, it was, colonized by not only the Romans, but the Greeks, the Phoenicians. So pretty much every country around Sicily, including like North Africa, the Iberian Peninsula, Middle Eastern countries, came in and colonized the 3 tribes of Sicily. And so for me, I was able to go back through my mushroom journeys and actually connect with my ancestors and kind of heal those lineages, because I had to heal that part within myself in order to find that deep love that I wanted to experience from other people and from self. So mushrooms help me become this wiser woman, because I'm able to actually come deeper into connection with the ancestors. And that is, something that they don't teach you in like the medical model of healing, or going through menopause, because it's menopause is looked at as a disease. And it's not. It's actually a natural part of remembering your wisdom. And so it is a natural time where this, sensual sage starts to heal her wounds if she hasn't already gone through that. So astrologically, when we're in our 20s, around 28, we go through something called the Saturn return. And so I remember at 28, my Saturn return, I was actually studying, I was in my 5th year studying astrology, Kabbalistic Tarot, and astrology as my esoteric practice. And so at the time, I was also trying to get pregnant, and I got pregnant with my daughter, who's 22 now. And I remember that happened to be my Saturn returns. And I was like, oh my God, I'm having a baby and I'm having to learn a whole new life. I'm settling, coming down into myself. And I spent my Saturn returns learning how to be a mom, and also completely disconnected from my sexuality for 2 years because of the C-section. So it was an intense time where I felt like I didn't quite have my full intuitive self. So here I am at 50, and pretty soon I'm about to, like, in the next few years, come into what's called the second Saturn return. And so a lot of women in their 50s will come into this place where the things that they didn't take care of and heal in their late 20s, they'll have to heal again. They'll have to kind of look at again. And so, I'm not saying astrology is for everybody, or I also work with human design for the past 4 years, or even these systems. Some people don't look at these systems, but I believe because we are so connected, not only to the earth, but we're connected to the cosmos. And so I talk about the cosmic mycelium all the time, and being able to come into connection with the cosmic mycelium. So these are the places where this journey can really be looked at as one of the most sacred times in our lives. We talk about the maiden and the mother oftentimes coming into, womanhood by getting your first moon cycle. We talk about coming into your mothering years, and like having, this time of transition into the sensual sage, which people call the crone, or other names, is a time of royalty. This is like the time you get to have complete rulership over your body without having to necessarily answer to anything. We can learn this at wherever we are, however we be, whichever situation we are in. The journey of choice is available to you. And this is the other part that mushrooms does, is it supports you in actually making good choices. And the other piece that I love about mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, is that it is actually an entheogen. And an entheogen is a fancy word for something that is mind altering. It's an entheogen that supports every community, because it grows on every single continent, and except Antarctica, I believe, but I believe some people grow it in labs. So technically, yeah, you can grow it in soil within a confined space. You can pick it freely, and you don't have to alter it for its effects. You can actually pick it and eat it fresh, and actually fresh psychedelic mushrooms are my favorite way to actually ingest the mushroom. So that being said, I just want to, let's see. Just kind of finish up with a little recap. And if you have any questions, please feel free to, if you're watching the replay, you can email me questions, because you're going to get an email from me. If you're on here live, you can go ahead, type a question in the chat, and I'm going to share my screen, and we're just going to go back to this overview, just to kind of give a recap. But before you do that, I'm just going to take a sacred pause, Take a breath in and release. How do we use mushrooms to go back and connect with our ancestors? Chelsea, that's an amazing question. Um, my simple answer is, I believe that it's a journey to get to a certain dosage, but usually around 7 grams of mushrooms, which is a high dose mushrooms to most, is where I find it most effective for ancestral connection to the womb. But some people, you can probably even take, 2 or 3 grams, and you can utilize, connecting to the earth as a way of connecting to your ancestors. So sometimes ancestors come in, you get information told to you by different sources around understanding who, like, this works really wonderful for like people maybe you didn't know. So I've had clients who maybe didn't know one of their grandparents, but they'll be even on a microdose, and that energy will come in and they'll just know things about their grandparents. And then they'll ask their mothers, and they'll be like, yeah, actually, your grandmother used to do this. So kind of it helps to kind of find and fill out the pieces of the lineage that maybe you didn't know, but mushrooms can support with our intuitive knowing because our senses come back online. And so we're able to reconnect in that way, almost like a frequency. It's an energetic frequency that we can feel, like kind of an in-between the spirit. And spirit is when I say spirit refers to like the universal spirit and the universal divine spirit. When I say soul is like individualized spirit within the body, within a body. When a soul goes into the vessel, this is a vessel, it's only a skin. It's only a skin, but my soul is can leave. The soul can leave this body at some point. It will, and it will come back with the collective spirit. So that spirit is within the soul, and this is how I describe it. So your ancestors have their spirits, maybe they're even souls in somebody in another vessel. And we're able to, when we come online with mushrooms works as, like I said, a neurotransmitter. It our senses go back online. It almost reboots our senses. We feel very, very connected. It heightens our, what people call our psychic abilities, our ESP, extrasensory perception. We can actually feel that connection with our ancestors. And so it's a journey, and it's not, it may sound a little woo-woo to some people, but this is how I've experienced it. And I hope that gives you a good basis and answer. So when I work with women on a long-term basis, I do a lot of ancestral cord cutting. I do a lot of ancestral reboots. And why I'm able to actually work with a lot of different people and is because in this mycelial world, we're able to kind of understand that journey with ancestors. And so, so hopefully that works and that answers your question. A little recap: mushrooms and menopause, the sensual sage. I'm Lucia Pavone, a somatic sex educator, sexological body worker. I call myself a mushwomb. Strega. Strega means witch in Italian, and it is actually more of like the person in the village that would help you. And all cultures have different types of words for Strega. The shaman, the healer, whatever, the medicine person. That's what a Strega is. And I just want to, you're welcome. Let's go back. So 1 second. I did want to recap. Uh-oh. Thanks for bearing with me through the technology. We're almost done. So just as a little recap, tonight you got the benefit of learning about how to relearn about your cycles and ways that you can actually connect, whether you're bleeding or not bleeding, to your menstrual cycle. I don't even call it's not a menstrual cycle necessarily, but it's an energetic frequency of your connection to the moon cycles and the ebbs and flows, and within your body. The basics of the importance of touch and tenderness with yourself. Hands and things like weighted blankets also help. I didn't mention that, but a great thing to to self-soothe is and to build connection with your body is touch, whether it's self-pleasuring or having a professional massage, acupressure, acupuncture even. There's so many things that I didn't talk about, because when if I decide to teach this 5-week, a collective journey for women who are going through, this change and journey into the sensual stage, I will go a little bit deeper into the specifics, including, different strength training exercises and food and all these different things I didn't talk about. So touch and tenderness is something we talked about, breast massage, and the importance of falling in love with, your body through touch. We talked about herbs for the sensual sage. I gave you a whole list of different herbs, and including different mushrooms that I didn't even mention all of the medicinal mushrooms that aren't psychedelic, like lion's mane. We talked about reishi and cordyceps a little bit, but there's so many more that I used. So I even make smoothies in a blend with different non-psychedelic herbs. So herbs that are non-psychedelic mushrooms. So there are special mushrooms that I love to go into. And just talking about lion's mane in general, I do use them. They're an adaptogen. What's called an adaptogen, and in a powdered form is how I use them with in a capsule form with psychedelic mushrooms, and they help the absorption and the processing of those psilocybin mushrooms to activate the brain in a more expansive way. Your memory, sometimes we start to lose our memory a little bit, they say, when you're going through menopause. And so lion's mane is one of my favorite mushrooms to use. Excuse me. The way I like them best is I cut them, and I like to fry them in a little butter and put a little bit of spicy pepper on there. Sometimes spiciness can trigger your body into hot flashes, but I kind of liked it because I looked at hot flashes as actually surges. I call them pleasure surges. And so as the hot flashes would come, I would take that time to kind of like, feel my body, do my breath work, self-pleasure if that came up, and dance and move, and shaking can be really good. A lot of people try to like wash it away, but I recommend just trying to, use that tenderness and touch, those soft touches, really beautiful. So different herbs, we talked about damiana, we talked about ashwagandha, and many, we talked about slippery elm, marshmallow root for maintaining moisture. I gave you some products from Ash in the Black Sage Botanicals, which you can find on IG, and sacred mushrooms. And this is like the whole premise for tonight, was understanding that one of the most effective support systems that you have comes from the mycelium, from the earth itself. And so mushrooms, especially psilocybin mushrooms, are super supportive of mental health. They're supportive of relieving anxiety. They're supportive of arousal. They're supportive of mental health. They're supportive of wisdom and ancestral healing, and really becoming and owning the sensual self, the sensual sage that you really are, and do become as you work through and move through menopause. So I just want to give thanks. I'm going to invite you, if there's no more questions. I know that there's a lot of people who are watching this on their replay because of the different time zones that you signed up in. So I just want to bless you in that. I want to say thank you for taking the time to either come on now or watch this later. I will be sending out a follow-up with a link where you'll be able to do a one-on-one discovery session with me, to support you in mapping out different possibilities if that's what you want. to do. Maybe you want to have a little bit more discussion around your sexual health and wellness as well, because as a somatic sex educator, I really support people to understand their sexual connection, their sensual and sexual embodiment, and work with people around the world for many years as an educator as well. So that being said, I invite you to just take a moment to close your eyes and think into like what experience that you had tonight. This was more of a learning lecture. And I love embodiment and moving things in into processing and integrating. So I invite you to just take a breath in. And as we close down the space, think about what you're feeling, what you're noticing in your body right now. Maybe you are in that journey of coming into your sensual stage. Maybe you're still bleeding and appreciating the moon cycles, and maybe you've learned a new perspective on what society has to offer us as the sensual stage. Whatever it is, I just invite you to tap into that place. Imagine what she looks like, what feels like, tastes like. Who is she to you? Who are you as the sensual sage? How can you appreciate every part of who you be? Mind, heart, body, spirits, and your genitals. It's such a blessing to be able to support and serve the community of women out there. I feel grateful for everyone who reached out, for everyone who said, I'm interested. And the lucky part is for those who registered, you get the replay. I'm not going to sell the replay to anybody else. You only get the replay if you came, you get this information. And I'm so grateful that I can provide it for you. Once again, this is for information purposes only. Do not go out and necessarily go, I'm going to try it all. Or if you do, please do your own research and utilize the tools that you have. And all of this was done in my own personal journey through making choices to go on a different route for my sensual sage years. And so even though I got my period yesterday after a year and a half, and there's a reason, I was like with a bunch of young women who were bleeding through the week and, having really great fun and really great fun sensual experiences myself. And so I know my body somehow went, I'm going to turn on as you're going through. And I felt like this is a cleaning out. And it was also my last trip to California. I've moved this year to Detroit. So it was my last trip to California this week for a while. I felt like my body said, we're going to just purge. We're going to like rebirth you. Literally, like the cycles I was sharing with you, we're rebirthing you. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity to be actually coming through tonight in the second day of my moon cycle, right in the middle of my sensual sage, my menopause years, to be able to present this to you. And so how the body can click back on its hormonal systems, which is really what happened, and start up again whenever you want. So also for people who, are trying to conceive in their later years, different ways to actually go about this. With that being said, thank you. so blessed. Please, in the next 24 hours, look for the replay. Take time to journal things that came up. I will be sending out the Google Doc link for the PDF with all of the herbs that I mentioned, and anything that I can answer for you. Please reach out via email. You can just respond to the email that I sent out to you. I'm very accessible like that. And yeah, thank you so much. If you have any comments, I would love to hear your feedback. So you'll get the link and it'll have the replay on YouTube is where it'll be listed in private chat. So if you have any comments, you can just comment along the way. That way I get a little feedback to hear. This is the first time I've done this particular little mini, lecture workshop. And so it will be, if I do it again, I'd love to know how I can improve it and support you better. If there's anything I missed or any other questions. So thank you so much. And Ashe, namaste, and have a beautiful evening. Ciao.